I want to go back to 2008 when you were interning for me. I found one of your topic sheets that you emailed to me. I'm going to read it too. I totally did. Isn't that crazy? I know. Thank God for Gmail.
Yeah, we're carrying around other people's stuff, old definitions of ourselves, old stories and narratives. I mean, it could be as simple as...
You can't go back to putting the mask on, right? Like there's a time where it's like you start to pull the thread and you just can't go back.
Yeah, that's the point of change. That's where the discomfort reaches its boiling point and you go, damn, all right, I will now, I'll now look at it. I'm ready to do some work. This is the super frustrating part about mold illness is it takes so long to figure out that that's what's causing your illness. I didn't get full confirmation that my condo was full of black mold until I moved out 5 years later.
Oh my God.
Well, I'm really excited that, we had a phone call a month or so ago telling me a little bit about this new awareness that you're creating with, your relationship with your voice and your body and your nervous system. And I was so delighted coming away from that. So I just want to say good on you for doing that work, Rachel. It's really cool.
Well, and the work is forever. You know that, right? That there is no end. The goalposts move. Yeah. And, the end is a mirage. So when you start to realize, I think the hard part is, and you might agree with this, because our lives, I think, are very congruent right now. And we'll get into how we know each other in a minute. Mm-hmm. I think our experiences are very similar with what we've been going through with just health, wellness, and sickness, and allowing our bodies to, speak to us and align with our higher selves, basically. But being in that space, it has sort of allowed me to be okay with allowing. I'm a control freak. I mean, you worked with me and for me. You used to be my intern. Do you remember how long ago that was?
Gosh.
Do you remember the
15 years, maybe? 2008, I want to say.
Yeah.
2008?
I started in 2007 on a local radio show, and then Nate was one of my interns. Did someone else recommend you to me, or did you
Joey.
apply? How did you know Joey?
Joey and I met in a video production class at Oakland University. Okay. And we hit it off, and he's like, I think you'd really have fun doing this thing I've been doing. And he told me about it, and I'm like, that sounds unbelievable. And he I used to hear him on Fridays on the radio, and I'm like, you're saying I can go and do that work? Sign me up. So then, a few weeks later, I was meeting Rachel for the first time.
Well, yeah, I loved you immediately. I was like, I don't know if he's going to be good at this at all, but I don't really care because I think he's hilarious. I mean, now that I'm sort of aware that your humor is sometimes a trauma response, does it bother you when I've written on some of your stuff that you're so serious right now, it's okay to actually be funny again and laugh again? Or do you not relate to that humor anymore?
I relate to it heavily. and we'll get into the breathwork talk later. Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of personal revelations around humor. And I believe that I had it from a young age. I grew up in a turbulent environment. So right away, humor was kind of a way to just get through hard times. And then I had some more adverse experiences later where it was kind of a defense mechanism. But it truly is part of me. It's the way that it's my perspective. I see things through a humor lens first. And it's something that I want to invite back into my life more in these, I've been through some heavy years the past 4 or 5 years where it's been real serious, all this serious writing about deep pain and emotion and all this. I do want to just be the silly Nate again.
Well, there's never just one perspective, right? I mean, you're all the things. And I think that's what I'm trying to say is it's okay to be all the things all the time, right? It's okay to not be so deep sometimes. Or you can still be deep and actually have humor too. You can do all of it.
Yeah. And that's, I think my path that I've been on is I've slowly been understanding and embracing these different parts of myself. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of felt, and it could be a projection, but it's felt thematic where it's Nate's in this deep phase and that's all you see from him. Oh, now he's saying he wants to be silly again. It ain't that, you know what I mean? It is all these things at once. And I think when I'm at my best, I am all of those things at once, and it feels that way. So I loved when you pointed that out to me on social that day. I was like, oh my, she's in my mind. I've been thinking about this a lot.
Well, because you really can do both. And I think humor is a great way to get people to scratch the surface and get to the deeper, right? Because the work that you do, you are a transformational life coach. Because really what you're doing is helping people help themselves, right? That's what I've learned from everyone that I've worked with is when you can get somebody in that aligned state and say, okay, now listen to the good voice, right? You've got the bad wolf on one shoulder and the good wolf on the other. Which one are you going to feed today? And when you can start flip-flopping that negative into the positive and you can get that alignment going, especially with like gut, heart, mind, right? And you know how important that is. I'm just getting you to that point. You're just hand-holding people to that point where it's like, okay, now when you hear the voice and it tells you to take the next best step, take the next best step. Is that kind of what you're doing? You're more of a guide.
For sure. I always say, like at the end of a lot of my writing on Instagram or other places, I'll put here by your side because, you know, I'm doing a lot of this work at the same time as I'm helping other people through it. And it is it's so funny. It's simple. It really is as simple as reconnecting to that voice. The problem is there's a lot of stacked on top of that voice for many of us.
And literally for a lot of us in your gut. I mean, you know how important that is. Like it's literal.
Yeah, we're carrying around other people's stuff, old definitions of ourselves, old stories and narratives. I mean, it could be as simple as, you know, let's say there's a worthiness issue for someone. That could have started in 9th grade when they asked someone to homecoming and got a no. Right away, that's going to write a program that goes, ooh, you had courage, you put yourself out there, you tried to go after something that was important to you and you got shut down. That hurts a lot. You burned your hand on the stove. Better not go near the stove again. Program updated. And we're walking around with that stuff. Those are our operating systems all the time. So yeah, I think for me, the work is really getting someone into a space where they feel comfortable, becoming more aware of what those operating systems are. Usually what happens once there's an awareness is they go, all right, I'm seeing that I kind of want to change things here, but I don't know where to start. You know, it's like walking into a really cluttered room going, I don't feel so good, but do I vacuum? Do I dust? Do I do this or that?
Garbage out first.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And that's so unloading everything that's not true to you and reconnecting with that authentic self is a lot of the work that I do. And by the time we start putting in some time there, people feel that inner confidence and pride start to build. And then the action steps of like, how do I actually want to navigate a change in my life? How do I want to have this hard conversation? It all gets way easier the more real we get with ourselves.
Well, I also think that it's important to have somebody like you through this process. And I know like affordability is an issue with a lot of people, whether it's therapy, life coaches, whatever it is. But when you start to pull the thread, as I call it, a lot of people will really realize if they're walking this alone, that trauma will come up that they didn't even know was holding them back. Things that happened in their lives that they had no idea affected them in the way that it did. That's why it's sort of better. And I encourage people to walk it with somebody like you, like especially with my EFT tapper too. She won't just put a random tap video out because you may start tapping and then realize, oh my God, like have something horrifying come up that you just never knew was part of why you're doing the things that you're doing. So that's why I encourage people to reach out to Nate, reach out to somebody that can walk this with you and can do this work with you. Because when real trauma comes up, because you may think, oh, it's a financial thing, or, oh, it's just a relationship thing that's going on in my life, right? It's never just the thing you think it is. And so when you have somebody like Nate walking you through this, oh yeah, once that string, I said this in the interview with Chad Miles, go listen to Nate's interview with Chad because it's incredible. But then in my interview with Chad, basically explaining, you know, comes that day when somebody asks you, how are you? And you actually answer the question, honestly, like, you know what? Not okay. You can't go back to putting the mask on, right? Like there's a time where it's like you start to pull the thread and you just can't go back.
Yeah, that's the point of change. That's where the discomfort reaches its boiling point and you go, damn, all right, I will now, I'll now look at it. I'm ready to do some work. And whether that be with a therapist, I actually get a lot of, I have a lot of interaction, people coming out of therapy, and then they want to then move forward. You know, therapy really helps you to kind of understand what's creating this unease that's actually disrupting my life. And then they might get to a point where they go, all right, I've got some of that in line. And now I actually want to ascend beyond where I am. So I'll get passed off a client from somebody who's been doing the therapy. And that's a great foundation because now they've got way more self-awareness. They've got more energy because they've been clearing out this old stuff. And it's like, great, now let's get into this fun visioning mode where we can actually like ideate on, all right, who is this more authentic version of me? What are they fulfilled in doing? How are they showing up? All those things are really hard to do if you are carrying excess trauma, or, even just unhealthy patterns with relationships. There's all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I do think it can be quite a slog to do this on your own. And even community is a really big thing. If you don't have the resources to work with a professional coach or a therapist or someone who does targeted body work or tapping, have somebody to talk to. Because if you're not, then you're getting all backed up, and that's going to lead to unease in your physical body over time. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I made the shift in my own life to doing more of this work. Is it's just, this is what fires me up, and I know it's needed because I'm a pretty outgoing person, and I kept a lot of this stuff inside me for decades.
I want to go back to 2008 when you were interning for me. I found one of your topic sheets that you emailed to me. I'm going to read it to you. I totally did. Isn't that crazy? I know. Thank God for Gmail. I was like, oh, so this is your show topics that you sent to me in July of 2008. And the very first one I want to see, did these relate to something that you were going through and you use them as generic topic, or were they just generic topics? There's a few, but the first one I think is very telling. And I'm going to say it because I know you do have a story attached to it. Discussion for callers is what you put. What high school moment would you most want to go back and change? In parentheses, something embarrassing that happened, etc.
Yep.
Why did we bring that up, Nate, as a topic?
I didn't think I was displaying my depth at that time, but
well, it's easier to say, ask somebody else this, right? It wasn't one of your personal topics. We'll get into those after. It was a topic for other people. So maybe you were scratching the surface, just not putting the mirror towards yourself at the time.
I just want to say how skilled I thought you and your whole team were at creating. I know that some of the, it can be viewed as, oh, this is like surface level. But one of the things that you've always had this gift for was finding this universal human truth that generates conversation and opinion. And I mean, this is the beginning. I don't even know if Instagram was around then or whatever, but like
probably just starting.
There would be a topic announced, and these people that are busy, they're driving to work, doing their thing. We had 3 interns at a time answering a phone that was ringing off the hook about this topic that Rachel would come up with. That was it just hit on those universal truths so well that was actually a big learning point for me around storytelling. So I want to just give you props for that first. So back to me.
Thank you. I love you. And we'll talk about storytelling after the story.
Okay, good. So for me, we talked about humor a little bit earlier. I'm fascinated by the formative high school years. I actually just talked to my fiance, Renee, about this yesterday. She said, I tend to have a lot of dreams that involve being in high school. And I just think that that's a time when our psyche and our identity and our ego is really going through a lot of shifts. And it's really trying to figure out, how am I going to navigate this whole weird hierarchy that I'm in? And those programs stick. And then we end up dreaming about it for years and years, whether it's.
Well, and also talking about not being able to regulate your nervous system because you don't even know what the that is. And so all the synapses are going off and you're just spinning out of control, plus hormones, plus all the other. Yeah, no, you're having nightmares about high school.
It makes sense. Yeah. So my very first day of high school, this is the weird part because now I'm 6'4" and 200 and some pounds. At the time I was 5'7", 114 pounds, maybe. I was a undersized little red-haired skateboarder kid. And I was standing in a back hallway with a couple of my skateboarder buddies, and we were playing hacky sack or something. And down the hallway comes this hulking figure, and literally like a movie scene. This guy blocked out the sunlight from coming through the doors behind him. Just dum, 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 and I'm like, oh, I hope he's not walking towards us. You could just tell he had this menacing look, and it looked kind of like Shrek. And he comes right up to my little group, and he starts looking at all of us, and he's kind of scanning up and down each of us, and then he centers himself on me, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, he's about to address me. I don't know why. And he says, hey, sit down. And I'm like, what? I'm good. I didn't know what he was talking about. Some weird hazing thing where you just make a kid do what you say. I don't know. He's like, sit down or I'm going to put you down. I'm like, I will sit. Yes, sir. So as soon as I sat down, this guy, his name was Josh, by the way, he grabbed onto my foot and he just took off down the hall towards the lunchroom where all the students were. And that was definitely a nervous system blow. Think about all the running through my head at that time.
Well, like fight, flight, and like what am I supposed to do? This is your first day of school in a new school with people who don't know you. And so now also this is your first impression.
100%.
And also now I've shown this guy he can kick my ass whenever the he wants because I'm a
and there's nothing I can do about
Nope.
it. So I think what we do in those situations is we go, all right, a quick assessment. What's out of your control? What can you control? What was out of my control is my physical capability. I mean, give me years. Sure, maybe I'm going to be able to defend myself. I have seconds. So I cannot control the fact that this guy has me in this position and he is going to do whatever he wants. We're going on a trip. What I can control is how I'm going to react to this. And then this kind of goes to, us always trying to make sure that we're perceived in the way that we think is most beneficial to us. So I'm thinking, if I act like I'm struggling as he takes me by all the pretty girls in my grade, I'm going to look weak. They're going to see me as less than. So I'm like, okay, can't do that. If I kick and scream, now all the guys are going to think I'm a baby. So I was like, you're just going to have to pretend like you are enjoying this.
Brilliant.
And maybe that'll be funny. And people will be like, hey, who's that guy? He's really weird, but I'm like interested to learn more. So, yeah, only a few strides into it, I just surrendered and I put my hands behind my head like this.
Yes.
And as we shot by my classmates, I just zinged like hey, what's up, guys? I'm headed to math. Anybody want to ride?
I love that.
We kept on our way. And to that point, humor was something that happened at home. I was really like a really smart student, pretty quiet, pretty reserved. If you can be more unpredictable than these people in your environment, nobody's going to mess with you. So that's who I became. You did not know what you were going to get with Nate in high school. There were days when I would do the most random stuff. This is probably like really inappropriate, but I came to school one day as a blind person. Okay. I just wore glasses and just walked around like I was, and no one did anything. They just let it happen. Like, there was days when I would I'd lay down on the floor like while kids were getting released for lunch, and they would just have to step over me. I was acting like a jackass, really, but that was my coping mechanism to control my environment.
Right. I relate to this in a way because I was always like the fat friend, right? So it was easier to be the funny fat friend and make fun of myself before somebody else had the ability to make fun of me. Does that make sense? So like I make myself the butt of the joke before you can do it. And so I've already disabled the situation that could potentially happen. It may not, but because of trauma, I've already assumed it will because it has. There's a pattern, right? And so it's easier for me just to be the fat, funny friend, knowing I'm not going to get hit on, like knowing like you're not coming to talk to me, you're coming to talk to her, and that's cool. So I feel like that's sort of what you were doing, right? Like I'm just going to be the butt of the joke anyway before somebody else controls the joke.
100%. That's the exact same scenario. Hey, you get the inputs from the environment that say, I was the butt of the joke again. I was the butt of the joke again. I was the butt of the joke again. Ouch. Mm-hmm. How can I take control of this? And yeah, same exact thing. Mm-hmm. And this is the part that I've really tried to make peace with is like, so think about us too, right? We're both smart asses. We're both silly. These are really great pieces of us that maybe came from a place of fear, but we can't lose them because it is truly a piece of who we are now. And that's been a lot of work on my end, is understanding that. And like, yeah, maybe the thing that activated that funny gene was traumatic, but I also am really thankful that it did, because now I have this personality that I'm proud of and that I can use for good things.
Well, yeah, I mean, understanding where the joke is, right? Being smart enough to understand how it can be perceived in storyline is huge for a creator, right? Like, are you writing a book? Is there more that you're going to do? Because you post on Instagram a lot and you give a lot of yourself, but you also give a lot of advice. Your content actually made me feel very uncomfortable in the very beginning. I don't take that time, right? I have to take the time to read what you wrote, correct? I can't just slide on to the next thing. I can, if I don't want to give my friend Nate time, I can absolutely be like it, love it, this is great, and move on to the next thing. Especially with the YouTube videos, right? You take a while, you take a minute to get into your stuff. Whereas I'm probably not going to put an intro on any of these podcasts. I'm probably just going to do press record and we just go, because that's how my brain works. Let's just do the thing. I don't need a 10-second intro. What are you doing to me, Nate? Please, what the just start talking. And it's but that's not who you are. That's not your way. And if I'm uncomfortable with the way that you're doing content, I don't have to actually watch the content. But because I love you, I had to stop down, right? Because normally when I watch a YouTube, I will put it on 2 times fast to get through it. Right. And I was like, oh God, Nate's stuff is making me so uncomfortable. What is making me so uncomfortable? Oh, because I actually have to sit and be with whatever the moment is that he's giving me. And that was so hard to do. Especially like when you started doing those videos and where I was in my process, I was like, I find this very hard to do. I cannot just sit here and watch this. And so when I would take the time and allow myself to just be in that moment for 5 minutes of a YouTube video, I was like, oh, okay, it wasn't so bad, right? Like I was able to take a moment. It's not easy.
The way that you articulated that, I appreciate that you said it, because I actually had a conversation with a great friend recently who I had lost touch with, and he went through some issues with depression and high anxiety, and he told me the same thing. He said, I got to tell you, man, I know that you reached out a few times, and I saw what you were kind of going through with your own transformation, and it made me really uncomfortable. I didn't want to interact with any of your stuff. I know that you've been writing and changing and quit your job and you're doing this coaching thing now, and I'm proud of you, but I just couldn't bring myself to be in that headspace. It hurt a lot for me to think about the stuff you were writing about.
It did hurt. Like literally it hurt. It hurt for me to I can't even take 5 minutes out of my life to just listen and watch and hear or read. But like, why?
Yeah, that's my vetting process. So if someone's going to do work with me, we are going to shine the light in the places that we typically scroll through. And the way I know that I'm going to have a good rapport with the client, or we're going to be able to do good work together, is they're one of those people who get to the bottom of one of my long ass writings, and I say on there like, hey, if you read all the way to the bottom, put a compass here or whatever. They've demonstrated that they're now ready to lean into some of the work. Now, do I still make 6-second reels once in a while? Sure.
We need our numbers.
We need that. Well, plus that's where the dog comes into, right?
Oh my God, I can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's a time and a place for every single individual to have that moment. So for me, it was in 2020. I think it was pretty close to the same time for you, where we go, hang on, dude, I'm doing fine in life. I got the job. I have a house I'm comfortable in. I'm pretty comfortable with my family. I'm just not feeling right. I don't even know what right is, but I don't feel good. And then what am I going to do about it? So I'm really trying to find people, and I could do a better job of it. I'm going to continue to refine, but I'm trying to find people who have already been through that feeling, to where they see one of my things and they go, ooh, I wonder what this one is. Like I resonated a lot with the last one, and that is slowly happening, and it's really exciting. So, but I will definitely admit, if you're going to watch my stuff, you said it to me, you're like, you really let your stuff breathe. Yeah, it's airing out quite a bit.
But it's good. It's good because, again, I don't have to read it. I don't have to watch it. If I'm not in that space, and I'm not always, I'll say, like, I'll make a mental note of like, your stuff is one of the people that I'm like, okay, I got to go back and watch, because number one, I know how much time and effort you're putting into it. So as a creator to a creator, like, I appreciate the time and effort that you put into your as a creator to creator. I'm pissed at you that you have time to edit. I don't know how. Where do you find time in the day? Honestly, answer the question. I can't.
Well, a huge part of it, I mean, I can sit here and toot my own horn for decisions I've made in my life, and I'm really proud of them, but a lot of it is my partner. Renee has been the rock for us in many ways since I got sick in 2019 and 2020. And she's literally just said, hey, what is it going to take for you to get right? And she's carried a lot of burden for our family these past few years. And that's, so the whole time thing, how was I able to stop working full time doing my editing for the land company? Because Renee's there just absolutely crushing it on the stuff that she's doing. That's how.
I love that.
There's no way that I could, if it was just me on my own. I would not. I would be legitimately, like right now, I'd probably be on one of the pink Jeep tours as the tour guide driver in Sedona right now, like giving a tour or something.
Which, as we all know, for those creators that have to have a day job, right? Like my client stuff comes first. I'm literally going to run from this to a client call, and I'm going to edit for 2 days their stuff. And so my stuff goes on the back burner. What I've learned to do, and this is like through process, is I have to make myself my own client, and I'm going to have to carve out the time. And it's either hire more editors, right, to do my own stuff. And it's very hard to give up your own.
Oh, man.
People don't know my voice, to get them to trust them with the like vlogs, especially of like that I'm talking about. They could edit the thing that was the whole point of the whole thing. So I can't give up my stuff. What I can do is release my client stuff. And so I've, through a series of doing interviews and talking with people and just taking the time to give it up and then say, nope, that's not good enough. This is what I need, right? Like the energy of doing a time code second pass of something and saying re-edit, where I could have literally just edited it. They're not learning from that. So I had to learn how do I teach what my voice is, right? Like for my clients, and then also have the patience that, okay, this is taking 3 times longer because I have to teach them how I want to do this, or how I want them to do this and what my expectations are. You know that. You worked with me. I yell at people straight up. So if you're in my face and we have a live show, it's like I would just tap kids out and be like, you're off the phones. Let's go. Move. I'm doing this. Just watch me. Right?
Yep.
Because we're in a situation where it's like you don't know what you don't know. And you also can't learn if I'm screaming at you, telling me what to do, instead of you just, okay, sometimes you have to sit back and watch what I'm doing. And so I've done that with editors too. I've done second pass edits where I've done it. This is how I would have done it.
And that's so useful. So that's like taking the leap from, creator or operator. Let's even broaden it beyond creative roles and just in life in general. We get really good at a thing, right? And then naturally we get promoted and people are like, you're the boss now. We're not really meant to just stay good at the thing. We need to get good at another thing, which is making other people good at the thing. And it's just a completely different skill set that involves a lot of patience and interpersonal connection. You need to be, so like the editors that you're working with, hey man, what's your path? What's your creative fire? How can this thing that we're doing be a tool to help you develop into your own voice and what you're trying to do? And they're going to learn a load from you. The pacing. How do we keep the engagement? That's one of the things I love about the way that you edit is it is just straight up, here's the meat. This is the meat. This is what we want people to know about the story. Here's the B-roll. It's in. And that's that I think it's really, really key, because a lot of branding agencies or ad agencies, small and large, will go in and they'll make a beautiful 2-minute commercial. It's just not translatable to an Instagram page.
Right.
And I'm seeing some of the stuff you're doing, and it's like, so if you have editors working with you, you're teaching the editors how to edit for today's.
Yeah. I have an ADHD brain. I don't know. Do you have ADHD? I don't think you have ADHD. No.
I don't think
okay.
so.
So I have an ADHD brain, and whether it's real or not, some people say it's not real. That's fine. But that's how a lot of kids and people now consume media, because they've been forced to consume it. I mean, it used to be you had, what did they say? You'd have to have 7 touch points. Now you have to have 70 touch points in marketing for somebody to even make a decision. They used to say it would be like, you had 20 seconds to get someone's attention. You now have less than 5 seconds, right? So to me, I call it get to the just get to the just show it to me already. Like, just get to it, dude. Like, what are you trying to say? And that's why I have such a hard time with your content, is because it's like you're trying to create a space for people to breathe, and I'm just like, this is what happened today. Da-da-da-da-da-da. You might learn something from it. I'm flipping to YouTube because I have more to say, and I can't do it in 90 to 60 seconds. But I'm not gonna lie, my clips will probably still be quick and short and to the point. They're just gonna be longer.
And that works. When I went to work for, so the company that I went to work for is called Landio, Landio. I found them on YouTube. They use YouTube videos to sell big pieces of land in these really beautiful places. And the guy who runs that company, his name is Tori. He is a genius with engagement and understanding. What does the pacing need to be? How does the B-roll match up with the things that I'm saying, to the point where he could have a 25-minute long video that felt like it was a couple of minutes because of the way that there was that congruency between what is he saying, what are we seeing visually, how much are we changing up the
every
imagery.
4 seconds. There's a scientific equation now to it. I know Mr. Beast broke it down. And so literally your brain needs to see the video switch every 4 seconds. And then also when you're getting into YouTube, I'm going to have to change up the music and all that stuff. But I'm going to do 2 different versions. I love that you showed the behind the scenes of your process of picking brand colors and text and fonts and how important that is and like how color and how it makes you feel. I love that you showed that behind the scenes process. That's the whole goal of my YouTube channel is literally when I'm going, I vlog my day and then I ask my clients, hey, can I tape us doing this so I can show why we're doing what we're doing and we're making the choices we're making? Because to me, it was like, this is so much easier just to show me doing the thing than sitting in front of a computer later today to do a webinar about doing the thing. Like just tape yourself doing the thing. And so that is huge.
It's more engaging, but I do want to give you props because it is a pain in the ass.
It's horrifying.
To capture yourself doing your own work, capturing someone else. It is very, very difficult. Requires extra equipment. I'm sure Mark has to assist you in some ways sometimes.
Well, that's the problem is that I don't have anybody there yet. Like the goal is I did hire somebody, but financially I can't afford for him to come to everything to shoot me shooting other people. But that's the goal. So for certain things, I look at it and say, okay, I need him to come do behind the scenes stuff. But I usually would just set up a 2-shot, leave it there. I'm not mic'd at all. So I'm just hoping a lot of this works out. And then most likely I'll have to voice over some of the stuff, which is fine because I'm not micing myself on that camera while they're mic'd on that. You know what I mean? Like ultimately, yes, that's what will happen. And when I hire somebody that comes to follow me, he does do that. But other stuff, it's just like, okay, just give me 2 seconds. Let me just set up this tripod. And like, we're just going to stand here in a 2-shot and you're going to have no idea what I'm going to do with this, but you're going to trust me anyway, because you love me and we're working together. And everybody has been so far. My issues are, I don't necessarily like the way I look from like those weird angles and I can't switch what I'm doing because it's like, I've made a choice, right? Like we're doing a 2-shot. So it's usually from the side and it is what it is. But that's something that I'm personally dealing with of disassociating with like my human body and what it looks like. That is something that I just have to get over because to me, the value of what I'm saying is more important than what I look like. And if someone's judging the value of what I'm saying by what I look like, then that's a them problem, not a me problem. And they could have learned something, but tough shit, bye.
Yeah. I mean, you have such an energy about you. You're very magnetic when you're on screen. So I'm pumped that you're doing some of this behind the scenes. Like some of the most fun I have on social media every week is when you've been going to these, like you go to the real estate seminar.
Oh my God.
And there's like 40, if nobody's seen these, you got to go back and watch them, but there'll be like 45 realtors in this room. And Rachel has her live going and she turns the camera to them and they're all like, ah! And she's like, just freaking chill, you guys. It's fine.
This is live. Well, because going live is scary for a lot of people. And I think because I've been in live TV, I've been in live radio, it's not as scary to me, I guess. And so what I tell everybody is, number one, just do it, right? Just practice because number one, nobody cares. And this as a creator, nobody gives a shit about you. They don't care. And if the more you up, the more people will actually watch because they like people up. That's why I love the behind the scenes because it's like, this is the stuff that people like. So with the podcast, with the stuff like the YouTube channel I'm creating, I'm probably not going to have a lot of the stuff that other people have seen on YouTube. For YouTube makes me want to vomit. I'm just like, I totally know the first 5-second pre-roll plus the funny thumbnail is what's going to get the attention. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know that I want to play that game.
So we're not going to see any shots of Rachel looking surprised in her thumbnails.
I'm not going to say that that's not going to happen because we're going to do A/B testing. And if the B works better than the A, then we'll probably just go with it until I can get enough of an audience that knows, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I literally told the graphic designer, can I just do this in every thumbnail? Is this okay? Where I'm just like thumbnails and just put that as my headline. And he was like, I don't know if that's going to work for every thumbnail. I was like, maybe we should try. You never know.
It definitely supports the brand.
That's exactly. That's what I said. It supports the brand. It's fine. This is literally like, if you don't give a I don't give a So I want to touch on Renee because you brought her up. She is your fiance.
Yes.
You have also mentioned I don't know if you kind of touched upon it here, but I know you've mentioned it in your interview with Chad Miles on A Level Deeper. I never say it right. A Level Deeper podcast. A Level Deeper. That's how I say it. I don't know. Just Google Chad Miles. You'll find him.
Yeah.
You talked about your family situation that was rough for you growing up, and it was also traumatizing for you. How are you leaving that behind while getting engaged and eventually married to another human being? Or do you acknowledge that trauma and realize you're not that same person that you
I think
are in this marriage? What am I trying to say? Do you understand what I'm trying
no,
to
I
say?
got you. Absolutely. It's just Nate doing his thing again, where he takes a long time to get to the
No,
point.
I want you to I want you to like think about it.
It's something that perspective is everything. You hear that all the time. But at this point in my life, after doing a lot of healing and having a lot of really difficult conversations, am incredibly thankful for the way that things played out for me 100%. So just to give people a little insight, I'm not going to go into the whole story, but I witnessed a lot of domestic violence involving my parents. There was alcoholism in our family. So just a lot of hostility and stuff that a young kid probably shouldn't see. I've met a lot of people since starting this healing process that they're the deepest, most caring, most empathetic, most courageous humans. And the more I get to know them, every single one of them has a story like mine. So in terms of how I'm moving into a relationship, how I'm going to be as a family person, family man, whatever you want to call
A
it.
husband and a father eventually.
A husband, maybe a father. We'll see how that goes. But I know what not to do. I know the ins and outs of addiction. I know the ins and outs of being unable to tap into your emotions and respond to them accordingly. I got a perfect roadmap of, okay, if you go down this route, here's where it leads, and it doesn't look so good. And there's also this other route you can take where you can understand that this was chosen for you, or you chose it, your soul chose it to create the version of you that you are so that you can make a better future. And that's just the perspective that I choose now. It wasn't always that way. When I first started confronting some of these past experiences, I was so pissed. I was so angry. I'm sitting here at 33 years old feeling like I'm going to die from all these different autoimmune issues that I had, going, motherfucker, why did this happen? Why did my family do this to me? Why are these emotions trapped inside me? I didn't choose this. And there's not a right answer. It's just, what are you going to choose? What perspective are you going to choose?
Well, also, if you feel yourself getting angry now, right? Your body is having a visceral response to something that's going on, whether Renee is making you angry or something going on is making you angry. Nobody's perfect, but you also know enough to say, okay, wait a minute. Like, I need to just take a step back, and what is really bothering me in this situation? Is it something she said or something that's happening? Or am I having a different kind of a response that may be even be deeper to what's going on here? And as long as she allows you to take that space, I think a lot of times when people are arguing, I had to learn this as a wife, was when my husband was like, I need a minute. I had to learn he's not saying, I don't love you, get the away from me. He's saying, I need a minute. And a lot of times I would be like, no, like, da 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 da, right? When he's like, listen to what I'm saying right now. I need a minute, to the point where one day he drove away and I was like, that's it. We're getting divorced. This is the end. We're done. Right. And it's like, he just asked me for a minute to breathe and think and stop, which I needed to learn how to take that minute too. Right. And so I had said to him after, and going through a few different things with him, without him, was sometimes I just need to know, listen, I love you. I'm here for this moment. However, I need you to respect me and understand I need a moment away from the situation. Doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean I'm running away. It doesn't mean I want a divorce. It just means I need 5 minutes. Please respect that. And so he finally has learned to say, I'm not saying I want a divorce. This is non-threatening in any way. I still love you. I just need a minute to collect my thoughts, because he has trauma too. He has a lot of trauma around growing up in relationships and his parents not being together. And so I get, for us to be, I think we've been together for 17 years almost. We're the longest relationships each other has ever had. And so I think it takes a lot for someone to know and understand, and I'm sure Renee understands this now with you. You guys probably have some sort of communication about communication, right?
I was going to say, it's just that's the maturation of the communication. It's very, very similar. So I tend to, because of my background, have a pretty fast emotional processor. I've just had to develop that. So when we have an issue where there's a confrontation or a conversation to be had, I'm ready. Let's go. I know exactly how I feel. I know how to articulate it. Let's do it. It's not the same thing for her. She doesn't know what's actually creating this feeling. She needs time to reflect on that. And same thing, I used to push her, and I would feel unsafe not having a resolution.
Right, because I need to know where this is going. If this is over, I'm going to just well, tell me now so I can figure it out the plan. But she's probably like, I'm going to my room and shutting the door. Don't stand outside the door. Don't ask me any more questions. I need a minute.
Regulate your own nervous system and understand that you're going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Give her the time.
Well, and that goes back to breathing. During the EFT session I just did before this, because I had her help me through like my nerves for this, because I know you and I'm doing interviews with people I know, like, and trust, because I need that space to like come into doing solo podcast interviews. For me, it was not easy. Similar to turning the camera on myself. It's like, who the do I think I am? So I had her do a session with me. And in the session, she said, like, you are safe, you are safe. And so like, that's a huge thing that I think when people act out with anger, whether the impetus is addiction or something else, it's still you're acting out in anger, but it's really fear and you don't feel safe. And so for her to go through those taps with me and say, like, numerous times, she said over and over again, so that my subconscious would remember, just breathe, I am safe. It was like, I have those tools. A lot of people don't have those tools.
Oh, and there's so many tools at our disposal. And this goes back to what you said earlier. If we take the time, that's something that I find so hilarious about humanity, myself included, is we go around asking for advice so much. Hey, what is your I'm feeling this way. What's your recommendation for this? Oh, I'm trying to change this thing about my diet. What should I do? What should I do? There is no lack of information about what we should do. We just don't actually take the time to implement it. So go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and say it.
Well, and that it's a responsibility thing. That's one of the reasons I said I was really proud of you at the beginning of this call, because when we begin understanding, oh yeah, I have everything I need to make this change. Like I legitimately only have my own stories and barriers and limitations. That's what's keeping me from it. Taking that responsibility is the gateway to all of this unfolding that we're talking about, but we have to actually say yes to it.
Exactly.
It's not an accident that you're doing this work.
But also, yes, all the advice is out there, but someone else's story is not my story. And so, when you clean out the gut, you fix the brain and the heart, because the heart was the last thing I've just started working on. That was very hard. Like I told her, I was like, it literally feels like there's hard clay around it. So I had this great gut mind connection, but I was like, oh, we're ignoring this part. Can't ignore that because, and if you ignore any one of those parts, it'll come out and manifest in a different way, usually physically in an unhealthy way. And so for me, it was really like when I started to get in that alignment, what you should do next will start to come to you. What your body wants, you'll know. Take another sip of water, Rachel, right? No, you shouldn't eat that cheese because it's going to make you feel like later, right? Like when you start taking the aligned action from the good voice that you're finally feeding, right?
The voice will tell you. The voice will
always tell you. And so it's so weird. And I've done this in multiple different interviews. And you tell people like, well, just I hear voices. I just follow the good voice, right? I hear the negative voice less now, because when you're in this alignment, it's so much easier to, number one, you hear the positive more than the negative, which is great. Number two, on those lows where you get thrown off, right? Where all of a sudden, like you're in traffic and somebody pisses you off or whatever the thing is that used to be a domino effect of my day. Now I can sort of isolate that situation and flip it, right? And get back on that high flying disc of like, okay, wait, no. All right. The human frequency is a very low frequency. Human beings are very low. And so when you can get aligned with that higher self and get kind of back up there, life is so much better. And it takes work. It takes practice, right? But your body really can heal itself if you start really just taking that aligned action, is what I think.
Yeah. And when I got to my lowest point in 2020, drug myself home from, I was fresh out of a hospital visit for what they told me was a severe panic attack, but which I know now is a lot of the mold and the parasites and all this stuff messing with my brain. But,
were you a big drinker? Were you drinking alcohol at the time too?
No.
Okay.
No, I've never really been a drinker. But think about liver fire, they call it like in Eastern medicine, right? That can also come from just pent up frustration.
Right. So you had trauma you were holding on to. And then on top of that, you were living, it was an apartment or a house?
Condo with a bunch of black mold in it.
Which, from when you moved in there to you realizing something's wrong, how much time had passed?
This is the super frustrating part about mold illness, is it takes so long to figure out that that's what's causing your illness. I didn't get full confirmation that my condo was full of black mold until I moved out 5 years later.
Oh my God.
So like when we first got in there in 2016, I think we got in there. The first week we were there, and this is a weird story to share, but I fully peed our bed, which is already a sign like something's going on in your nervous system, something's going on in your body. But we just chalked it up to like, oh, you're really stressed. We just opened our gym in Plymouth when I was working for the gyms. Just didn't think anything of it. But it's slowly my health began to decline from that point. So there were signs right away that I now know, but there's a lot of people out there struggling right now with things like depression, things like anxiety, things like chronic gut, and it's causing all kinds of havoc that can go to every system in your body. And I'm not trying to like scare people, but for real, if you have those things going on, look closer at things like mold, at things like heavy metals, parasites, and also what are you holding on to that's in there that maybe you haven't talked about or resolved?
So here's my question. Resolving the mold toxicity, was that actually the thing that led you to resolving and starting to work on the trauma that you were holding on to?
Yeah. So do we have time for a short story about how
my
I got
heart out is in an hour. Or actually for like 45 minutes. So I'm okay. What do you is the puppy coming back?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
So here's the relationship between those two. So it's like, hey, you've got this physical thing making you sick. You're not sure what it is. And there's also this stuff trapped inside. So just before, I think it was like late 2019, a few of us, after many Joe Rogan episodes and lots of, reading internet research and everything, got really intrigued. Like, man, hearing a lot about how psilocybin, magic mushrooms, can help people on their healing journeys, help them with various things. You hear all these stories. Oh yeah, I went in and the entities gave me this insight and it helped me resolve this relationship, or it helped me see this version of myself, whatever. And I'm thinking, I have this thing that I'm dealing with where my vitality, my life force is literally being exponentially cut down. I'm feeling bad and I don't know why. I'm like, maybe the mushrooms can tell me. So work up the courage. A friend of ours got some. And I went on this little mushroom journey, first time ever with using psychedelics.
Oh, God bless you.
Yeah, it was interesting. So we had a great time, but the intention that I set for myself that day was, hey, higher guides, can you help me discern why I'm so sick and what's it going to take for me to get better? Had our whole journey, looked at pretty birds outside and saw their beautiful colors, and we did some creative writing and all the stuff that you hear about that's really wonderful about using a psychedelic substance.
Pause. You were with a group of people that really understood the mission of the trip, right?
Correct.
And that's what's very important for people to understand, because I used to trip on acid all the time in college. So and mushrooms, which would just make me laugh hysterically and I couldn't function. So I would be interested to see how I would handle it now. I've microdosed but haven't gone full in. Being around the right group of people when you're doing this is decision number one before you even do it. Why are we doing this? Who am I doing it with? And what is my intention? And is there a sober person there just in case goes awry? So you at least laid the groundwork with people that you trusted and that you could be around, because that could go horribly wrong.
And I still think I was underprepared. So looking back now, I'm really glad you stopped me there. I would not have done that the way that I did it, looking in hindsight. If I was going to have a first experience with a substance like that and I had an intention, I would have done it with a guide, like a professional guide. Setting, like you said, the people, their energy, where are you doing it? All these different things matter. It opens up doorways. So yes, definitely. But, on the scale of being an absolute idiot and doing it the smartest way, I think I got like a C+ or a B-.
You got to be minus. You did pretty good.
Yeah. Cool. So I'll show my mom that report card. So we had the whole experience and the day goes by and I didn't get nothing dropped in for me around what's going on with this health issue. So I'm just thinking, okay, whatever, just must not have been the right time. And then a whole day passed. And the next night, so again, I'm no longer under, I'm not having any visions. There's no effects that I'm experiencing. Certainly my brain chemistry is probably still altered slightly from these substances. So the next night I'm sleeping and I wake up at 3:00 in the morning having a vivid flashback of a time when I witnessed a domestic incident at my house when I was like 9 years old. I saw my mom's face. I saw every action. I saw the explosion of glass, all of these things. It was the moment. I was there again. I was soaked in sweat. I was literally in tears when I woke up. It was one of the most horrifying incidents I've ever had. But it told me so loud and clear, hey, want to know why you're sick? This is in here. This is really still alive inside of you. And if you want to get better, you're going to have to go back and do all the stuff that you haven't done. And that pretty much was like my to-do list for the whole year of 2021. So I don't remember if I wrote it or just said it to myself. I said, you will have every single hard conversation that you've ever put off, and you will do all of that, and every single amount of work and tear that you need to shed, you're going to do the work, Nate, because it was so clear to me the way that the insight showed up, like, that's it. So that was formative for me. That's kind of why I'm the version of me you see sitting here now.
So as much as the mold toxicity sucked, one step led to the other, which led to the other. And at some point, the universe was like, something has to unlock this kid's brain to understand where all of this started. Because even had you just dealt with the mold toxicity issue and getting the toxins out of your body, you still would have felt sick. And you would have been like, why am I still sick? So in theory, yes, does mold toxicity suck and that you had to go through that? 100%. Nothing is worse than feeling like you're dying. Trust me, I know. I've been through that. Mm-hmm. But to get to the bottom of the issue, at least you knew where to start, like to really start. Because a lot of times, you know this, like we do all the things and we're like, oh, we're feeling pretty good. And then all of a sudden the universe will smack you right the off. And you go all the way back down. And you're like, why the are we back here again? Well, it's because there's a bigger issue. So my next question to you really is, how do you have these hard conversations with family members that you love? And two, what if they don't remember it the same way that you did? And they make you feel crazy, where it's like, it wasn't like that, Nate. It was fine. That didn't happen.
Yeah, that's a big piece I had to struggle with, because when I first started down that path, I had in my mind that what I was going to get was like resolution and sincere, like amends and apologies. Very quickly, I realized that that shit's external to me. So the first thing that I did is I had to have a conversation with my mom about the way that it felt to be a 9-year-old standing in a room, unable to help her. And it was very disempowering. Made me feel like a coward. And I wept. I literally became that kid again and wept in front of her, which I'm sure was not very pleasant for her to be part of for the second time. We had a great conversation after that, and it kind of involved this. And my stepfather was in a place in his life where he was in immense pain, and he was in a freaking fog that I probably haven't even experienced. He isn't going to remember it. So, I say have all these conversations. Some of the most profound ones were with myself. What do you really need from this person? Just love and understanding.
Well, and that's safety, right? A lot of times we look outside ourselves to feel safe, which is what a 9-year-old Nate needed to feel. But at the same time, like you said, you can't go back in time and have this conversation with them now because they remember it differently and or don't remember at all. When something's that traumatic, they forget, right? The brain just cuts that out and is like, nope, never did that. Right. And hurt people. And so in your process of helping people who are hurt, is it weird to look at the two of them, your stepfather and your mother, and it's like, do you realize how hurt you were and how you hurt me? Is that like, it's got to be such a hard conversation to have.
It is. And it's also the beauty in life. It's like this, like ugly symphony of color. That's one of the things that I appreciate about life, is that there's this deep pain, but then there's this healing that is so transformative, and it's so light, and it's all of those things. So is it hard to go back and be in that space for a while when I was trying to assimilate what those experiences were and get them out of my body? Absolutely. But it has led to better relationships for all of us. I call those guys every day. I have a great relationship with my stepfather now. He's been sober for over 15 years, almost to 20 maybe. And he was a big part of my development as a human. A lot of my communication skills that I have came from him. So like, it's just being able, like, when you have something that jars the nervous system that much, the nervous system wants to stare at that. And that's what was, like you mentioned earlier, like if something happened in traffic, the nervous system remembers the way it felt when it wasn't safe when you were a 9-year-old kid. And something will happen where a conflict arises and it goes right back to that spot. So I think a lot of the healing has come from letting myself, after I dealt with some of the pain, also see the light. Oh, I remember I used to go I do work in the yard with my stepdad, and he would take me to like, I don't know, Wendy's or whatever. And he had this rule where he'd say, get anything you want. The only thing is we're not going to go to the drive-through. You have to go in and you have to order it so that you get good at talking to people,
To
interacting
get
with
out
them.
you over your social anxiety. I love that.
Yeah.
Although I would have hated it at that age.
Yeah.
I would have been like,
And
you, that I'm not getting the thing.
yeah. And so that was like my way to see there's so many good things about that upbringing that I totally love and cherish. And there was some bad stuff too. Yeah. But that's living.
But I do want people to understand that not everyone's as lucky as you are to have that same outcome. That yes, there are some people that when you're facing that trauma and you're going to go have that conversation with a family member, you may not get the outcome that you wanted. But that's okay too, because really what you're resolving is why it matters so much to you, right? So like, yes, would it be amazing for your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, whoever, your bully to say, oh my God, I am so sorry that I did this thing and I made you feel so horrible. And I didn't create that safe space for you. Do we all wish that we could have that? Sure. But that's not everyone's reality. So that's why going to somebody like you and helping you walk them through these steps of healing trauma is so important, because it's like, oh, well, I should just go confront this person. Not necessarily. Let's discuss why you feel like you need that resolution specifically first, because you may not get it. And then there's more trauma on top of trauma.
We make this assumption that forgiveness requires an apology from the other party. And it's a really dangerous assumption because of what you just said. It can lead us further into conflict, further into pain. If the goal, I love to do this thing where I'm just boiling down, like, so we have all these things running around in our minds. Boil it down. Nate, what you need to heal? What needs to happen for you to heal? You got to cut the cord with these events, with the way that you relate to these people. That's you. Doesn't matter if they apologize or not. Do you forgive them? Because if you don't, the cord stays. If you can find a way to let it go, you got a chance of getting rid of that cord. So I see that a lot. I see that in my own family. I see that in friends. It makes sense. Like when we're hurt, we do want the other person to have empathy around it and say sorry. But if the ultimate goal is our own healing and it's not that us two need to get along, then sometimes we need to compromise and just go, even if it hurts, I'm just going to let it go.
Well, and that's why a lot of people keep family members at a certain distance and or just are cutting family members out altogether. I think there's a lot of parents of the older generation, like my parents' generation, that don't get it, because now we've got TikTok and YouTube and people are outwardly talking about their traumas and how they're dealing with it and what happened to them as a younger person. And if you have, let's say, a narcissistic parent or whoever the trauma happened with, especially with a narcissist, you have to understand they're never going to blame themselves. They're not going to see what you're saying because they have their own trauma and mental disorders that they're dealing with. And part of narcissism is pretending like it didn't happen. It didn't happen in that way for them. And so when you're confronting someone of like, you did this, you made me feel this way. And they're like, no, I didn't. I have no idea what you're talking about. It's like, oh, and I went through that for the longest time in a situation that I was holding on to with trauma. I would be like, no, like you lit the fire. And then I would respond and scream and yell and do all these things. And that person would constantly be like, no, I didn't. And so over and over in my head, it would be like, no, it's their fault. It's their fault that I reacted this way. No, it's my fault I reacted this way. I have control over how I react. I can't control what they're doing or what they're saying to me, but I can control how I react. And I wasn't controlling that because it was easier for me to blame the other person. And it was like, I had to finally get over that and realize, oh, like I could have stopped, checked my nervous system, taken a breath and said, you know what? We need to continue this conversation later when I feel like I can have it calmly with you and be okay to leave. And I think so many people get scared to leave those situations or walk away from that situation because it's like, well, what's going to happen? Am I going to get fired? Are they going to leave me? Right? Or, I want to create that safe space, but we're not giving ourselves that grace to say, I can control how I react to the situation and I need to take a minute. And that I own that completely now. I don't need that apology from that person. I don't need that apology because it's like, oh, wait, I had the power to walk away try and change the situation, and I chose not to. So that's on me. And then why did I choose not to is niching down, right? Like what am I really dealing with? Why am I always in fight or flight?
Yeah, I mean, I think evolutionarily, we want justice. You know, we want things to make sense through the lens that we view them through. And I just want to acknowledge, and just as you have been, like, there's going to be people who hear this are like, F you too. You're making it sound so easy to, I'm just going to let go. You have no idea what I want. I get it, man. I get it. And we all come to it in our own time. It doesn't mean that it has to happen after you listen to this podcast from these two sitting here talking to you. But it's just the only way that I know has been to take the lens and point it back at myself. There's certain people who never get there, and that's okay too. That's their path.
But if it is that deep of a wound or trauma and you're not really dealing with it, it will manifest itself physically. I mean, I got sick to the point where I went to I think 10 different doctors once, and everybody was like, it's just stress. I'm like, what do you mean it's just stress? Like, I feel like I'm dying. It's just stress. And it was really how I was reacting to situations, because I've always been in fight or flight. When something gets uncomfortable, I'm either going to kick your and beat you in that conversation and tell you why you suck, or I'm going to leave. Bye. I'm out. Like, you were lucky that you had me, and I'm out. And I've done that my whole life. And so the work I'm doing now, and so when people really hear like the work, right? We hear it in TikToks and stuff. Oh, I'm doing the work.
Right.
That's what Nate is referring to, where like, okay, you can say, oh, these two oh, it's so easy. No, we've done the work. We will continue to do the work, and we will always be doing the work. It doesn't end, right? Because there's going to be some response somewhere along the line of my life where somebody says something to me, and all of a sudden I'm like, you mother, and I'm back in that space, right? That I've worked so hard to get out of, that I've worked so hard to be like, okay, I feel the tightness in my chest. I feel the fight coming on. Oh my God, I'm going to either fight or flight right now. What's going to happen? And like, give myself that moment, right? But that may not happen one day.
Those grooves are really deep. Once we spend that much time in fight, flight, or freeze, they're really deep grooves. So, you know, if, at least for myself, one of the things I used to ask myself all the time is, when is this work going to be done? Or how do I even know if I'm making progress with this? Man, this hurts.
You're funny.
And you probably asked that too, right?
It's like, so this is finished at some point in time, right? No.
One of the ways I knew though that I was making progress was these simple little moments where, like you said, the traffic thing. So I'd get a heightened response in a little road rage situation. 2020 Nate feels it here and here for hours,
for days. Are you kidding me? I'd relive that for days.
Exactly. Thinking about, I should have done this. The way I know that I was making progress is, holy dude, your heart rate just went up, you tightened, you constricted, and now it's 4 minutes later and you're at ease again. Whoa. And I get excited, like, oh my God, you're doing it. So those are the ways to tell, is like actually putting yourself back into a little bit of the conditions or the environment and seeing how am I reacting differently. So the way that translates to relationship, if you're triggered by your family and you're doing this deep internal work, how long does it take you to get triggered when you go back into the environment, and how quickly can you bring yourself back down? That's a great way to measure, how am I doing on this work?
When you start, you don't think that you'll be able to flip it that quickly. It's so hard at first, because when people are like, oh, just change your negative thoughts into positives, it's easy. It is. I mean, it is that simple. It's so crazy, and it feels so stupid, because you're just like, oh, what are you talking about? But when you're taking aligned action, when your frequency is higher, when your vibration is higher, when your mind is clear and your gut is clean, and your heart is heading in the right direction, everything is working together, you can quickly flip that negative into a positive, because you realize all I'm doing and the only person I'm hurting by staying in that negative space is me. So wait, I have control of the outcome? Yes. I have control over how my body responds to the situation? Yes. I don't have to actually fight or flight or freeze or do any of that. I can just be in the moment and be aware of how I'm feeling. Yes. It's so crazy, because like, I get it. I get what everybody's like. If you're not on this frequency and you're hearing this, you're going to be like, these people. You're not going to watch to this point anyway, so I don't give a shit.
Yep.
But if you have come this far, it means you're doing the work, and I'm really proud of you. But it's never going to end. There's not an end to it. We just sort of climb a little bit higher and higher, right? Like, we never graduate. We just sort of level up And I love a leveling up. Do you love a leveling up now? Do you know when you're consciously having like a level up?
100%. And it's the word you used is being.
Mm-hmm.
It feels a lot different than the
reacting.
When I
being
think,
is different than reacting, right?
And it's different than chasing. So like most of my life, most of your life too, we've been people pleasers. We want to win the freaking trophy.
Because I'm number one. And you need to know that.
I want to be the best, and I need people to tell me that I'm the best, because like the big shift is the most a scenario where no one else would even know that you're proud of yourself, but a moment happens where you do just feel that ascension into a higher state of being and going, God damn, look what you just did there. Whoa. And that's a big part of the coaching work I do. Is I ask people all the time, hey, what's it look like when you're proud of yourself?
Oh, you asked me that question. I hate that. I'll find my answer. My old answer. I don't know. Finish that sentence, then ask me again now.
No, it's as simple as that. Like, how does Rachel make herself proud?
Honestly, it's the same answer I gave Chad about success, is just showing up for myself. Does that make sense? Like for me, for a while, and it still happens to this day, I'm working on it, but simple self-care tasks were like climbing Mount Everest, right? Like, what do you mean I have to get up and take a shower? I have to brush my teeth. I have to make my bed. I have to wash the dishes. Like, I have to be like a decent human being to myself. And doing those things for me, because they make me feel better, not because the family needs it done or somebody else needs something from me, doing it because I wanted to do it for myself. Those simple things are when I'm most proudest of myself. Like, I made the bed this morning. I haven't made the bed in a little bit. And I was like, oh my God, I made the bed. Like, I felt really good about that. And it may seem so simple to some people, but when you've been in depression and when you have ADHD and you disassociate from the things you have to do because you don't want to do them, but you can sort of flip it of like, okay, well, I don't want to do those other things, but I'm going to make my bed, right? Like, that's going to make me feel better. And I'm going to do that to feel proud of myself. And those little things, I know some people may be like, that's what you're proud of. I get so proud of myself because that is something that was hard for me to do. And it's still some days hard for me to do. Same thing with success. Success to me is like, dude, we showed up. Like, I showed up. I got up at 5:45 a.m., set all this stuff up, tested it out, made sure it felt okay. I hate this blue light on my cheek, but I'm not going to stop to fix it. Although I think you would understand if I was like, let's fix it. But we've got an hour and 20 minutes of this blue light on my cheek. So it is what it is. But like, just showing up to me nowadays is the success. Because you also know, like, and this happened in radio and in TV. I did the segment. You'd have the post-show meeting. Great job with that. Okay, what's next? You're only as good as your last bit. You're only as good as your last segment. You're only as good as your last viral video. You're only as good as your last YouTube that did well. So is that really what you want? Is that really what we're chasing? No, we don't chase, we attract. Right? Like, I don't chase anymore, I attract, number one. Number two, those things aren't success. So like, even bringing it back to the trauma, you may confront that person and they may be like, oh my God, baby, I'm so sorry I did that to you. Really, afterwards, did that make the change you thought it was going to make? No.
Good question.
It doesn't. And you know that, right? Like, for so long, like, I just need this thing to happen. I just need this person to apologize to me and then everything will be fine. And you know, that is not true.
Yeah, and it's so funny because we are on this journey kind of together, doing it at the same time. So we get all passionate about it. But yeah, there will be a lot of people that hear this that are like, fuck.
Your voice is great. Okay. Maybe we should call somebody.
Yeah.
No.
That's and that's fine. And I just want to acknowledge that there are times in our lives where we are just getting by and we don't want to look at these things. That's okay too. So
that's okay. But you know as well as I do, the longer you don't look at it, the worse it will be, to the point where I was driving and wanted to just crash my car into a tree because I was like, well, if I just do that, like, I don't want to kill myself, but I just need some time in a hospital where I can just sleep.
Oh, God.
Nobody needs anything from me. I have had that conversation with myself, I think my whole life, through different jobs and different relationships, where it's like, I can't even give myself that space and have that conversation with somebody of saying, hey, this isn't working out. You know what I mean? Whether it's a job or relationship or whatever it is in my life, like fight or flight, right? So
you mentioned the thing about showing up for yourself being a major component and being proud. My next question would be, after you said this thing about crashing into the tree, what has been in the past your relationship with boundaries, and what are you building it into now?
I have never had any boundaries. To me, you couldn't outwork me. You couldn't outschedule me because I'll be there for all the things and for my family and for my kids, and I can do all the things. It wasn't until I started saying no that I was attracting the things I really wanted into my life. No is a very powerful word, just as much as yes, but a yes that you're aligned with, a yes that really means, yes, I want to do this. Like I'm literally running out of here for a client that asked me last minute, hey, can you make it at this time to do this for us? They're a nonprofit. And so I said yes to it because I really truly believe in what they're doing, and we couldn't reschedule that moment in time. And so to me, it was like, okay, normally I would have the boundary and say, no, I don't want to just cut this interview short and run out the door because this interview means a lot to me. But at the same time, I was like, okay, I can give it the time that it needs. Our conversation, I don't have to cut it short. It will naturally end. And I can also be there for that person. So I'm learning to like say yes to the things that I really want to say yes to, and trying not to overschedule myself and create that boundary. And I'm also really trying to make space for the things that I want to do, like to create what I want to create that makes me happy. And so that's the next hurdle that we're dealing with, is like, okay, how do I block out time and stick to it so that even when this client calls again and says, oh my God, I have this last minute thing, that I can say, I'm sorry, I can't do this for you. Right? Like that's going to be hard, especially when it's for a nonprofit and people that like clients that I love so much that are like almost family. It's like, those are the boundaries that are going to be the hardest for me.
How do you think you're gonna overcome that barrier?
I'm going to do it. I know I'm going to say, well, my can do tomorrow, right? Because I'm not on a timeline. No one's expecting my edits except for me. So to me, it's like, okay, well, they need something. Mine doesn't have to be done right now, right? Because I'm my own boss. And if I don't want to put an episode out, I don't have to put an episode out. And so most likely with that particular person, I will say, yes, I can do it. Now, the thing I'm working on is hiring people that can be there instead. That I can say, hey, do you have time tomorrow to go do this? I have a client, I can't go, but can you? So that is where I'm now realizing I have to rely on other people. As hard as it is for me to outsource stuff and pray that they can get the same storyline, understanding of story, of footage that I would get, I have to trust, right? I have to trust that handing this off to somebody else is okay. So those are the next two hurdles, is really like, here's my boundary. And by the way, I do have somebody that can do it for you. And trust that,
it's so interesting.
They're going to get, and maybe they'll get something better, right? Like,
right? Ooh. A different possibility.
I know, imagine that. Maybe it's not going to suck.
You said earlier, when you start listening to the voice, that it will slowly sprinkle out to you what needs to happen next. And one of the things I love about and thanks for humoring me and answering those questions, by the way, but getting closer to having a real firm grasp on our values allows us to start out on that journey of growth where the environment, based on what we're valuing, will give us the learnings that we need. You literally just walked through the growth journey. Hey, I value. So when I work with people, we always want to like create a shared definition of what values are. And when you talk to organizations, it's one definition. And so when I work with people, what it is just very simple. Hey, what do you spend your time, attention, intention? What do you spend your resources on? That's the you value. So Rachel's saying, I really value the time that I spend showing up for myself. Then the next question, so here comes the learning and the challenge, the things that are going to challenge her being able to show up and actually, sort of make that value come true, is in order for me to do that, I'm going to have to trust. And then Coach Nate steps in and goes, oh, tell me about your relationship with trusting other people in this realm. So this is the way that it unfolds. And I love the way that she's saying it, where she goes, so the next thing up for me is, see, that's the voice saying, hey, new lesson, time for you to become a better leader, and you're going to have to trust. Here's what that's going to look like. And here comes the game board for you to start playing around with.
And you've worked with me. I have a very hard time trusting because, and as a creator, that moment in time, we cannot always recreate, right? If we're doing a live camera shot, if we're doing like the audio has to work, it all has to work. I hired somebody to shoot me for one of the courses I did. And he shot me from the side the whole time. And I was like, why in your head did you not think, let me move and shoot her from the front and get a different perspective, right? And so it's like, well, he knows now and he knows not what to do next time, right? But I also know to say, okay, no, we're going to set you up here. I'm going to move around the room and you feel free to move. Get the shot. Get the shot.
Yeah.
If the audio is not working, if the camera's not working, if you've got bleed over with something else, but you can control how to fix that and you don't fix it, what the fuck? We can't use any of it then.
Yeah. So
I have a hard time with control and giving that up and trusting other people, but I have to for my own mental health.
So this goes back to nervous system. So there's the idea that, okay, I need to bring this other person on, because if I do, it's going to give me more time to show up for myself. Okay, we know that that's going to happen. So here comes this other person. Now I want them to do it at the standard that I would do it, but my nervous system is always go, go, go. And it's a little impatient around communicating at the level that I would need to get the outcome I want for me to actually be able to trust them. So I let the nervous system win, which is, God, Rachel, just do it yourself. So it's
exactly. Oh my
all
God,
these
I'm
things
literally breaking out in hives while you're talking about this.
Well, I get it. And I'm the same way with as calm as I sound and as slow as I talk when it comes to creating. Yeah. Ask Renee. There's times when like she has to be the one shooting.
Oh
God. I can be because I see it my way, but the call to action there is, okay, well, you have language, right, Nate? Yeah, you do. Okay. Use it.
Tell her, hey,
here's the outcome I'm trying to create here. And the way that I usually do that is so if you put this thing in the foreground and then you slowly move around, you see how that creates that nice motion into the next shot. Oh yeah, I do. But it takes extra time and it takes my energy.
Well, she also has to be in the energy of learning, because sometimes people are like, you, Nate, let me just get the shot so I can get the over this and onto with our vacation. Why are we creating content when we should be enjoying ourselves and enjoying the moment? No, because that's my husband. I'm like, dude, like he'll be like, oh, you're taping again? I'm like, yes, this is what we do now. You've already said yes to this, so tough fucking we're taping now. And I'll literally just record that whole part, like, so how was your workout? But it's like, just, it's okay to be on board, like be in that space of like, yes, this is what we're doing. And if you're gonna help me, like if I just explain it to you once, then you don't have to learn it again. But yes, use your voice. You can't read my brain, and I understand that. Like I'm trying to get better at like translating, okay, this is the outcome I want from this conversation.
Yeah.
And so my husband is in that same space where he also doesn't understand sound bites, so he'll talk for too long. And so I'll have to sometimes be like, okay, the outcome I want from this conversation is the workout was great. It was really hard, but I'm really proud of myself that I'm progressing. Not a 10-minute conversation about burpees and what the else you had to do. I don't care. I love you so much, but that's not what we were going for. No one has the time. So we're learning, but as long as she's open to learning, and the way I convey that message and the vibration in that is not like, I think you're stupid because you don't know what the you're doing. It's, hey, as my partner, can you understand, like, this is the vision I have. If we can try it my way first, great. If you have a better way, I'd love to see it.
We made a deal on our trip to New Zealand that we went on in November. It was, Nate, you get 30 minutes a day of shooting time. Whatever you do with that 30 and split it up however you want, you got 30. And that was a fun challenge.
Would have died. You're in New Zealand. Were you like, Renee, when we go to like California or New York, we could do this, not New Zealand. Are you kidding me?
It was tough. It was really tough because you're damn right. But she won't listen to this part. But it was a fun challenge for me to understand, like, okay, under these constraints, what does the viewer need to see to stay engaged? So it did help me as a storyteller a little bit too. But yeah, I for sure snuck a couple drone shots.
I'd be like, okay, 30 minutes. Are you timing me? No, whatever. All right. So this brings us back around and wraps all of this into a nice bow, because we're going to talk about Bear. How much as a creator did it piss you off that a cute mother puppy gets more views and more followers than you have after working at this content for years, that it all it took was a puppy?
You just captured it so perfectly. It's literally this mix of like furious and delighted. It's just, I've been pretty consistently writing longer form and doing video that takes a long time to edit on YouTube, Instagram for 5 or 6 years. And during that time, I got around like 1,200 followers on Instagram, maybe close to 500 on YouTube. It's very tough to get people to hit the follow button. This little comes along. We got him on Thanksgiving, and by the end of December, he was already up over 50,000 followers, and now he's at 113,000. He's had several videos that have millions of views. So it's just comical. It's comical to see how right you are about the attention thing we talked about earlier. So if you're not going to fit into, I always call it puppies and butts.
Puppies and babies.
Which is, yeah, or baby. Yeah, maybe
Puppies and
babies. But like, you're going to have a hard time. You got to find a way. This is kind of back to the humor thing too. It ties it in. You have to find a way. Even so, for me, this is the call to action for me. Nate, you talk about coaching, personal growth, development. Those are heavier topics in some ways. I need to do a better job of creating lightness there that is consumable, that can get people a little bit further into my realm where I can then give them some of that deeper stuff. And Bear has been a huge magnet for that. So I'm in a lot of his videos where we're like interacting and going on hikes or doing funny stuff together. And naturally people see that and they go, oh, that guy seems nice. And then they go over to my stuff and they click follow. So it's just been this hilarious. I told Renee, I'm like, I just got an inquiry from like a dream client for my coaching business. And I said, oh, how'd you hear about me? Oh, I saw a video of you and your dog. I'm like, holy
whatever we have to use as bait to get the right person in.
Yep.
But also, I had to also come to terms with not everyone is for you and you're not for everyone. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter what the bait is. If they're not the right catch, right? Because they don't align with your values and they don't align with what you're saying, then it's probably better that they're not following you and that they're not subscribing, because it's just an awful, awkward conversation in the long run of like, well, I'm not just the funny guy with a puppy. Like, I'm actually a little bit deeper, and I'm going to make you think, and I'm going to make you do the work, and it's going to be hard, and you're going to feel uncomfortable, and you might cry a few times, and you might tell me to go the off. But if you choose to do this with me, I'm here for you. Right? Like, it's not easy to have that conversation. So I have to also accept it as like, okay, we grow slower because we're attracting the right people to us, right? We don't chase, we attract. So can a viral video get you more followers? Sure. Are those the people that are going to convert to clients? No, not at all. And that's it. I thank you for bringing that up, because, maybe I'm a little spoiled now because I have both worlds in my hand, right? So one thing in my hand is this massive reach now that these cute little puppy videos are getting. So I'm getting the validation that we all seek when we create. Because you're like, yes, people are watching it and they get it. The edit was perfect. The music I put with it, the text over it, they get it. Exactly. So that feels good. The other hand, what that's done for me, really, aside from attract a few people over to me, is it allows me to just appreciate this other thing that I'm doing and not feel as frantic about having to get every single person to want to read these things or take part in this kind of coaching stuff. It's fine. So it's given me a bit of a sigh of relief, and it's actually made making my stuff more fun, because I just know, yeah, dude, it ain't gonna get a million views. It's just not. And right, because fine. People don't care. I tell all my, again, just people don't care, and that's okay. Yeah, in the best and worst way. They just, don't worry, because they probably don't care. And also, it's going to hurt when you create and you don't get the response you want. But if you're doing it for the right reasons, you're going to keep going and doing it anyway, so that you are expressing yourself. Yes. I'm not going to get a lot of views, but I'm still going to post this because I needed to get it out. I mean, you said that for the first YouTube episode I posted, which was like, I just needed to get that out of my system. And you're 100% right. I just needed to get it out. Like, I couldn't do a pre-roll. I couldn't edit anymore. Like, I touched it so many times that I was just like, the more I edit it, the more not real it's going to be, of the things that I was saying about doing the behind the scenes with doing Chad's interview. Oh yeah. I love, which it's like, if I keep cutting it down, then I'm cutting out the real parts. Does that make sense? And so I was like, which I need to vomit it out. And I don't give a about all this other shit. I'm just going to do it. And so did a lot of people watch it? No. But do I care? Not really, because I'm not really growing anything yet. I'm not in that space right now. I'm just sort of like, we're just tiptoeing and taking baby steps. Same thing with the coaching. You may not have a full roster yet, but that's probably better that you don't, because number one, a full roster, then you'll realize, okay, here's the limited amount of income I'm making, because one-on-one time for coaching, there's a limited time in the day. It might actually start making you think about, okay, what passive streams of income can I make along with this, congruently with the other things that I do, right? With the travel, with the dog. How else can I monetize these other things that are touch points in my life that, okay, I can one-on-one coach people. That's X amount of times in a day. That's X amount of people in a week. But then how can I touch thousands or millions?
The time it's taking to build it up. And I think you're in a similar spot. It's actually giving me time to grow. It's giving me time to expand my skill set. Like if I was completely full with clients, I wouldn't have been able to go and do this 2-week long, 10 to 12 hour a day breathwork thing that I just got done with, that I think is going to be transformative. I might end up doing more of that than I do of coaching.
You probably will. Honestly, what I've learned so much is that so much comes from breath. So much comes from breath. It's like, holy shit, I can't wait. Like, I want to do a breath session with you in the future if you're willing to do it, or start doing it on your YouTube. Give it away for free, manifest kind of what you want in the long run. And then if you can start doing videos that you can monetize, great, fabulous. But it all starts with getting oxygen to the cells of your body and focusing.
It is.
It's so simple.
So you watched me do that YouTube interview with Chad, I think, where I talked about being in that first breathwork ceremony I went to, and they were doing the intentions. And
and she picked you, and you said something totally different intention than you intended to intend. Does that make sense? You see what you explain it.
Yeah. I was thinking. Yeah. So the whole breath thing. Well, this is good because this kind of wraps up right to where my life is right now, which is I just finished this breathwork certification. So this past summer I just got invited to go to a breathwork ceremony in Sedona with a facilitator named Anahata Ananda. I did not know Anahata before this. I had no idea that she has the amount of influence that she does. She does work with Anit and Aubrey Marcus and all these different people in the biohacking field. And I didn't know any of that. I legit had somebody just say, hey, we're going to this thing on Sunday. You want to come? And I was like, I was actually in a shitty mood. I was like, all right, whatever. So I show up at her studio. It's called Shine. And the energy there is really palpable. I'm like, and I really noticed stuff like that because I remember when we were at the gyms, we tried to have a very similar vibe. I'm like, ooh, they're working hard to have this kind of energy. So I go in there, and the way that she created the container was so intentional that before we even sat on our mats, you could tell everybody was getting in this zone where they're like, I'm about to go inward here. This is going to be profound. So I have this stuff I'm dealing with. At the time, I had not announced that I was moving into the coaching realm yet. I was still doing my video editing work. I had all kinds of shit run through my mind. She's going around the room asking for people for a one-word intention before we move into the experience. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I got to navigate this, kind of like our heightened nervous system state. Nathan, figure it out. Go. Navigate. And she has these piercing blue eyes, and she's a very certain energy. She's just, which she does a lot of shamanic work, which makes sense. She'll fucking pull the truth out of you. Gets to me. Her eyes look at me. I go, being. So like I switched right away. I knew, oh, you're not here to navigate this thing. That's actually your freaking problem, Nate, is you're always trying to control the outcome too much. What will it be like to just be? And she said, perfect. And she had me pull a card. She had a deck of cards that have all these different words on them. She said, this card is going to be what supports you being able to just be. Pull the card. The card is nurture. And I'm like, okay. And so she goes, so what do you make of this? I'm like, I'm not sure. She goes, well, how about this, Nate? Instead of you trying to come in here and outbreathe every single one of the other people sitting next to you and kick ass at this breathing and do a great job, why don't you just slow down a little and just let whatever comes up come up? And I'm like, that's going to be hard. God damn it. So we get into the experience, and it is a very much so she calls it shamangelic breath work. The idea is that we've got all these dense emotions stored. We've got this stuff down there, and we're carrying this extra weight from past experiences and programs. You go in there with the breath, and you do some pretty intense breathing, and you sweep that shit out. You get rid of it, whatever it is. Is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it pain? Is it mourning? Is it sadness? Get it out with this breathing cadence. And then in its place, we put light and love. So we start off into this thing, and I'm breathing really heavy, and I just happen to remember my words being, and the thing is surrender. And I've got this childhood that I told you about earlier on our conversation. They put me right next to this person who was having the most horrific sounding release I've ever heard. This girl was going off, screaming, just it was chaos. And because you're in this sort of like heightened state, you're hyperoxygenating, you get into this different state of awareness, it immediately took me back to the chaos that was my childhood. And so I'm hardening. It's all these things that I'm so familiar with that have happened in my past. It's brought me back there. All the work that I've done to soften, it was gone. I'm in this moment. I'm that kid again. And Anahata came up, and she just put her hand like softly on my chest. And she said, "You're okay. You're safe. Let it hit you. Just let it in." And I cracked. I just started sobbing. It completely just like, and what it was is, when I was young, I didn't have really any support around these experiences that I was having. So I just bottled up what I was feeling. I let the environment do what it was to me, and I just held on to it. She said, "Dude, just let it hit you and let yourself feel it." And it completely emptied me out. By the end of the session, I'm on cloud 9 after having this big emotional release and being supported in that really unique motherly way. And at the end, she's like, "Yeah, if you're feeling called to this kind of work, I'm doing a training this winter. No action you need to take now. Just kind of let it sink in." And it just stuck with me so much that I ended up manifesting a run-in with her on a hike where there was no one else. 2 months later, I'm on a hike with Renee, where we actually talked at the top of the hike about the breathwork ceremony. I'm like, that was freaking profound. And I think I might have the type of skills needed to facilitate that kind of thing that we had. I wish the universe would just give me a nod that that's the right direction for me to go in. Legit said these things. We're walking back down from our hike. Didn't see another person on this hike. One individual starts coming up almost to the end. It's freaking Anahata. How many hikes are there in Sedona? There's hundreds. And she got up to us, and I was so excited that the universe delivered it so quickly. I'm like, I can't fucking believe this. So she got right next to us. I said, "Hey, Anahata, I'm Nate. Remember me from this summer? I'm going to do your breathwork training this winter." And she's like, oh my God, okay. It kind of jarred her, but that's the way that it unfolded for me. And I had such a profound experience with the way that she facilitates it, that it pushed me into doing this training. And it's so profound, Rachel. I cannot wait for you to experience it, because it takes you to levels that you like. We're doing all this work, right? And we're thinking, okay, I'm getting it all. It takes you even further, and you clear out stuff you didn't even know was there. And the lightness you feel when it's over is incredible. So like for me as a coach, I'm thinking, I'm trying to help people talk through some of these barriers. What if I could take them to talk to their pure selves in 90 minutes of a breathwork session? And when they get done, I can just say, remember what we talked about earlier? So what did the voice say? Oh, well, it said that right now I'm not using my own creativity, and I'm doing it for everybody else, and I need to step into my power. That's great. What needs to happen next?
It helps you focus. Like you said, it just clears out the other stuff. So if people want to book a session with you, because that moment was amazing, and it just has to live, and that's the end. We love that. We're ending on that.
Yeah.
Because we could talk about manifesting forever, because that moment with her was manifested prior to you saying that on top of the mountain, right? Like she was put there on that day for a different reason. And we all have these things where, when you start to learn the universe is manifesting something else for someone else and for you at the same time. And that's why we're not on our timeline. We're on the universe's timeline, because you have to trust that they're putting the things into play. We can have this conversation forever. But I want people to know, how can they book with you? If they want to book a breathwork session, if they want to book a coaching session with you, how do they do that?
The easiest way to get a hold of me is just go to, you can go on Instagram. So it's Getting There Nate, and you can send me a DM right on there. So it's real convenient. You don't have to send in a form. Just shoot me a DM on that, and I'll talk back to you. Also, gettingthere.com is my site where you can send in a form there. There's probably going to be a world where I'm doing the breath work remotely, but I don't know that I'm going to do that right away. It's so profound in person that there might be people who hear this, if you hear it and you're like, shit, I need that. I want to clear out some of these stuck emotions, and that sounds interesting. I might have you come to Sedona and visit, and I've got a space here where we can do that. And and we can turn it into an entire weekend.
I think we should
rather
book
than
a trip to do that for sure. I think you should do that. And then let me know when you're coming to Michigan and I'll, buy the ticket, whatever I need to do immediately. I already know I'm doing it.
Love
so, oh my God. And honestly, book with Nate now because I know how the universe works and you're gonna get full. I mean, it's going to happen fairly quickly because once you get clarity on what your purpose is, because I think that that's what you were messing with a little bit, right? And as you keep doing the work and realizing there's all these other ways to help people, including the breath work, once you get clarity on your purpose, there's only so much time in a day that Nate's going to have, guys. So book with him now, honestly.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, and it's definitely happening quickly. Like as soon as we wrapped up the class, retreats being booked, co-facilitating with my other classmates, like it was instant. Well,
and retreats with you, and we can talk about this further in the future, and also include doing the cold plunges, right? Like you could facilitate a whole retreat that is literally from beginning to end life-changing, not just the breath work, which actually has to do with the cold plunge too, but I would like tell me what you're doing, nature, when it is, and I'll give you my credit card. I'm ready to go. I'm not kidding. I love it. I can't wait. I love you. Thank you for doing this with me.
Love you too. It was so fun. I can't wait to see you.
Tell the fiance thank you for taking the puppy or whoever took the puppy.
He's sleeping.
He is? Okay, good. Do you want to shout out his Instagram?
Oh, thank you he needs the help. It's Getting There Bear if you want to go see a cute little golden retriever on his hiking adventures.
If Nate's a little too deep for you, start with Getting There Bear. Dip your toe in. He is the gateway drug. And then you can contact Nate when you actually are ready to do the work.
I love what you're doing, Rachel. I love following along with the work that you're doing with small business owners in Michigan. It's so needed. And just keep going, man. It's awesome.
I will. I love you. Thank you.
Love you too.